Hi, I'm Erin Burke, certified prenatal yoga instructor, and today I'm going to talk to you about how your posture habits might be feeding into pelvic floor issues. So a lot of times we talk about the pelvic floor in terms of needing to strengthen it, but there's another issue that doesn't get talked about a lot, and that's having too tight of a pelvic floor. Doesn't mean too strong, rather just maybe too tight or too short of a muscle in the pelvic floor. And one of the things that a lot of us do that feeds into that relates to our posture. So think about a muscle and when it's shortened. So let's take my bicep for instance. When I flex it and kind of shorten this muscle, for a second I'm strengthening it, but I really need to then extend it to fully gain the benefits. If I'm just constantly holding it in this contracted position, I'm really just creating fatigue, and when I try to then contract it a little bit more, I don't have a lot of oomph to give. So now think about that as your pelvic floor. If it's being held in a constantly contracted position, it's really not going to be very strong, and it's not going to have a lot to give when you need it to. So one of the ways that we feed into the shortening of pelvic floor muscles is by putting our weight to one side. So think about during the day when you stand. When you're standing up tall, do you kind of lean into one foot? When you're seated, do you cross your legs? Do you tend to cross the same leg over every time? Do you tend to put the weight in the same foot every time? When you're holding your baby or your groceries, do you tend to kind of put it on one hip and lean to one side, generally the same hip? So all of that could be leading to actually an imbalance in your pelvic floor where one side specifically is being contracted more than the other. So we don't necessarily need to be in a yoga classroom or doing any special exercises to start dealing with this. It's something you can start dealing with immediately, and that's just by thinking about your posture. So during this week when you're out and about or seated at your desk, start noticing what you're doing with your posture and when you're leaning to one side, and as quickly as possible try to correct it so that you start having that level pelvis and start working towards not having one side imbalanced from the other. And once we fix that imbalance and don't have that overly contracted muscle, that's really a great time for us to start working on then building that strength. Talk to you soon.